Good evening. I want to convene the regular meeting of the Brattleboro Selectboard for Tuesday, August 21st, 2018. We know the meeting has been properly warned because we were actually here at 4 o'clock and went into executive session. The first order of business is to approve the minutes of the August 7th meeting. Would someone like to make a motion?
So moved.
We have a motion to approve the minutes of the August 7th meeting. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Anyone opposed? Motion carries 5-0. Next on the agenda is chair's remarks, and all I have to say is thank you, everybody, for coming to our meeting tonight. I'm going to pass it over to the town manager because I know he has a few remarks to make.
Thank you. Yes, I have two. I just wanted to advise everybody, there may be some people who didn't look at the agenda online when the meeting was warned last week, and may be wondering where the parking items are for tonight. So we wanted to advise that we're still working on a couple of the items of prior direction from the select board to have everything together for the select board's next consideration. And on September 4th, parking will be on the agenda. And the topics will include transportation center lighting and painting, public safety in and around the town's parking facilities, alternative scenarios for parking rate increases, Sunday parking, whether or not to charge on Sunday, review of the boot procedures, review of shared parking arrangements, and identification of any other parking-related issues coming out of the review of the parking ordinance and the parking study earlier this year. So that's what we'll be addressing together about parking on September 4th. And my other comment this evening is the sharing of disappointing news that after literally a couple of years of effort off and on, and times when there were some very promising developments in our communications with the state of Vermont, we were unable to reach agreement on how we might work together to do a substantial renovation here in this building and then a long-term lease for state offices in the building. And so we've moved on to other options. We talked at the time that there were, when we initiated the communications with the state, that there were some other ways in which the town might find a partner. We are committed to something that results in a long-term relationship and a capital upgrade to this important public facility. But we're having to move on to other ways in which we might accomplish that. And so be continuing to work on that, continue to keep the select board advised, and I expect by sometime in the fall we'll have something more to say publicly about it. Thank you.
Thank you, Peter. Is there anyone on the select board that wants to make any remarks or give us any committee reports?
We do.
Yeah, we do.
You want to do the art and I'll do the
Sure.
speakers?
So, as you know, Dave and I are, we represent the select board, or bridge between the select board and the compassion committee as a way to make being a compassionate town something that's actionable, in addition to the resolution that was signed last year. And so one of the things currently being discussed as a part of that is the possibility of having an art show that would illustrate what compassion looks like through art. There are still some discussions happening with that, but I would say stay tuned for other details on what that would look like. I am not a part of that planning committee, but I would expect that one of the planning organizations that's involved would be supplying more information and details to the public. Also, one of the things that I guess I can safely say has been inspired by the Compassion Committee, there are about 12 to 13 churches in West Brattleboro that are doing a compassion study group that is being led by Doug Cox. And so it's not the Compassion Committee doing it, but it's something that he's doing, and eventually those may be coming to churches in the downtown area, and it may be something that would spread to other places and organizations, so stay tuned. And the other piece of that update is
a series of speakers forums. After a year that I wasn't a part of the committee of processing about what the committee wanted to do, they pulled all that together in the final meeting and came up with the goal of connecting with the community, reaching out to the community and getting information from the community, and basically trying to make compassion an active part of how people think about this town and how they live their lives. And one of the ideas we came up with to start that process was to ask people in social services, people in health, people in education, people in municipal services, employers, just people from the community to come and talk about why compassion is important in their work, in the way that they do the work, and the way they relate to people, and basically how they use that in their lives to get it on the radar, get it in people's minds, to be thinking about or recognizing that it really is a part of how we function. And it really is important for things to go well and for the community to be the kind of community we would like it to be. So we're going to start that in the spring. And I think that's about it. Yeah, basically to raise awareness. And just one other thing, the art show may be something that we would want to talk about as a town to figure out how would we support that. I'm not sure how we might, other than promoting, but there may be ways that we can do that as well. That's the Compassion Committee from yesterday.
Thank you. Any other updates? Before we open up to public participation, I do, on behalf of the entire Select Board, want to acknowledge the passing of Ben Underhill. I don't know how many of you know Ben. I think everybody did. He was a great guy. He did a lot for our community, youth services, Chamber of Commerce, other organizations he was involved in. But he was a town meeting rep, and he was always at town meeting, and he was sort of the voice of reason when I think we all needed it. So we really want to express our condolences to his family and his friends. And Ben's the kind of guy that makes our town a good place to live in. So we want to just remember him tonight. Now it's time in the agenda for public participation. And this is a time where people can get up and make comments about things that are not on tonight's agenda. So if you'd like to say something about that's not on tonight's agenda, let me know. And you can have the microphone. Yeah, please come up to the mic. And if you can tell us your name and where you're from. And just so you know, the microphone does not amplify your voice, so you're not going to hear something. It's for the TV.
Yeah. I also have something.
Great, thank you.
You guys can read along.
Thank you. Thanks.
Thank you.
Thanks.
One for everyone, but just
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Rio Dimes. I am the youth vote coordinator for Brattleboro Common Sense, and I'm from Brattleboro. So the youth vote is an amendment that will allow 16 and 17-year-olds in Brattleboro to vote on local issues, to serve on the school board for the town and the high school, and serve at representative town meeting. The youth vote is an initiative of Brattleboro Common Sense, and the petition was drafted by Brattleboro Town Moderator Lauren Crisp and Attorney Paul Gillis, and has been endorsed by Lieutenant Governor of Vermont David Zuckerman. Also Jeanette White, who is the chairperson of the Vermont State Senate Judiciary Committee, has promised to expedite its approval following our vote. We have been getting a lot of public support in the past few months, and we have been planning to get the youth vote on the ballot for the new November election. We knew the deadline to get the amendment on the ballot in this November is Friday, this 24th of August. However, last Thursday, the town attorney made a technical complaint about the petition, which is the reason that we have to go in front of the select board. What the attorney didn't remember is that he made this same complaint once before in 2015 when the youth vote was was on the works to get on the ballot then. And it was resolved then, and the youth vote was put on the ballot. Sadly, it didn't get the majority in favor. But we were told that we needed to have, last Thursday, we were told that we needed to have the youth vote discussed at a select board meeting. We were also told that the only meeting between then and Friday, the 24th, this upcoming Friday, was this upcoming Tuesday, which is today. But it turned out that Thursday, the 16th, the same day, was the deadline for getting on that upcoming meeting's agenda, aka today's meeting's agenda. We knew that we couldn't get 150 more signatures that we needed in that 2 hours until the deadline. But then we got another call, and we were told that we could get all the signatures in on Monday the 20th, yesterday, and still be on the agenda for today's meeting. We knew we could make that time, but sadly, we were called back yet again and told that it was actually not going to happen for the November elections because we actually did need all the signatures that Thursday, that same day, the 16th by 5 p.m. to get on the agenda for today's meeting. And it was the last meeting of the select board before the deadline of the November elections. So I know that's hard to follow a little. At that point, we had the deadline changed 3 times in like an hour to us. In a row, only to be told that we could not get on the ballot in November. And now we need you to not pass judgment on the youth vote, but just to put it on the ballot, because the amendment process following this petition already requires a decision by the state legislature, and it is not the town government's legal business to shortcut the legislature's decision. And if this is not possible, we ask you to do something that we know the select board has done before, actually on June 5th in 2012 to be exact, and that is to schedule another meeting 2 days from now and put the youth vote on the agenda.
Can I ask you a question? Do you have all your signatures? Have you put them into the town clerk's office?
Yes.
Okay. The way it works, we can't talk about this tonight because it's not on the agenda. We can talk about it at the next board meeting, and I know there's a process. I didn't know anything you were just telling me, like I hadn't heard that big flow chart thing. But what we can do is talk about it in 2 weeks and get it on the town meeting ballot in March. Is what we can do.
Yeah, but
And I haven't talked to the town attorney about who told you what with that.
yeah. Well, we have been leading up to this time really wanting to get it on the November ballot,
Yeah.
and it was just a big surprise to us to have like
Yeah.
all these deadline changes in that short amount of time while hoping to still get on the November ballot. And we really don't want to wait another X amount of months to get it on the ballot, and we think that it would kind of cool down by then, and we won't get like very many people excited about it because we've been advertising everything that we want it on the November ballot, and that we're going to try to get it on the November ballot. And the whole reason that we need to have a scheduled time with the select board was because of a so-called issue that wasn't even an issue and that was actually resolved once before. So we just think that since with normal petitions, if I know it correctly, we don't need to have a scheduled time in front of the select board, but the select board just has to send it along to the ballot.
Yeah, and I think we have to do that. If we're going to do it, we have to do it at our next meeting, which would be September 4th. Is that our next meeting?
That's your next meeting.
Yeah, we do it on September 4th, so you would be able to get on, we don't want to delve into this a lot right now because it's not a warrant agenda item.
Yeah.
And I don't want to violate any open meeting law issues, but I hear what you're saying, and I think the way it seems is, and again, we've got to talk to the town manager and the town attorney, but I know that there's a set timeline on this, and it sounds like you can get it on in the March
Yeah.
agenda, the
Yeah.
March town meeting ballot.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you. I'm sorry. Does anyone you want to say something?
I was just going to ask if anybody wanted to make a comment, if anyone knows about this complicated. It's really complicated to me, the process, but
Yeah, I mean, the one
that
thing.
you guys went through.
Yeah, so I don't know I don't know who they were talking through the whole time, but anything that we set the agenda on, was it Wednesday?
Mm-hmm.
So we set the agenda on Wednesday, and if we didn't have any information about something on Wednesday, the agenda was set. So we did not have this in our zone of, or our list of things for the agenda, because it hadn't come onto our radar screen yet. That's why it's not on tonight's agenda. And I don't know who was talking to who, but I do know that it never was not in our zone, or it wasn't in our sphere of knowing that it was, that it was coming up.
And Matt,
Speak to a
Yeah.
piece of this. So I can confirm that there was some confusing communication, and I apologize for that. It actually was because in the course of communicating and seeing how you were making progress in getting the signatures, we were actually trying to work with you to see if there was a way to put it on, which is why you got the indication that there was that flexibility. What we did learn partway through is the select board had to have a set of signatures that had been certified, warned for the public to know that select board would be taking the action to move it along to a meeting. I don't know, and I'm not going to try to speak to it without knowing what the issue is that is suggested that there's a barrier. I have had some communication with the town attorney about this, and my understanding is I don't know of any such barrier. What I know is that when there are enough signatures, the select board can do its ministerial duty of announcing that it's going to be on a ballot, and then the town clerk advises the state, and then it goes on the ballot. And it seems that what happened here was the timing was just so tight between these several days that there weren't the threshold of the number of signatures necessary hadn't been reached in time for the warning of the meeting. I understand that you have reached that and got those in yesterday. And that the implication of that, and I had some communication with your dad, I believe, about this on Friday, that the implication of how this was unfolding was that there would be no barrier to having there be a ballot question exactly as you've asked before the people of Brattleboro. The implication is that it would be in March instead of in November.
Is there any way that we can pull some learning from this and make sure that things are clearer? Because I know how it feels to be on the other end of getting like 8 different answers for something that should be like a clear pathway, especially if people are wanting to participate in a democratic process. So is there a possibility that we can take some learning from this and make our language or information clearer in different ways for people, so that in the future, whether it's this issue or another, that we can make things just really clear and less confusing?
Sure.
Yeah, because this is unfortunate.
Yeah, no, it
I'm
is.
not feeling great about this.
Yeah.
we could
sorry
meet
that
very
happened to
briefly
you.
on Friday morning and
The 3 of us can meet briefly on Friday morning. That's all we need. I'll set aside time to do it.
That's what people
I
want.
could do it Friday morning.
I can do it Friday morning.
I'll make time Friday morning.
Would this satisfy, it's a charter change we're talking about.
Yeah, it has to be
Charter
approved by
change.
the legislature. So ultimately, that's where it's going to go.
Yeah.
It'll go on depending on the March ballot or the November ballot. Then it has to be approved by the legislature.
Okay,
because it's a charter change.
okay.
So does that make sense?
Yep.
Yep.
I mean, if that's the mood of the board, I'll see if I can make the Friday meeting. Not sure I can.
So how do we do that?
So we can warn a
Warn a
special
meeting.
select board meeting if you agree on a time that
I
works
just have
for-
to check my calendar because I have a meeting
Early
with
is best.
Patrick. I have a meeting with Patrick to talk about something that concerns me in regards to something else related to removal.
Can we do it a few minutes
What time
before
is
that?
that?
Probably, yeah. What time did we agree? I'm sorry.
We agreed on 10 o'clock, but please,
Okay, so
I
can
can
we
be
do
really
9:30? Is
Yeah.
9:30 okay with
I can
everybody?
do 9:30.
I can do 9:30.
I cannot meet on Friday, so you guys can do it.
At
As long as you're,
9:30?
I can't, no, I can't meet on
Okay.
Friday. But if 3 of you can do it,
I'll share it. Where's my calendar?
Can you come Friday morning? Well, actually, we only need the town clerk to tell us that the signatures are good, right? You can say,
Right.
you
Yeah, they don't have
can go to
to-
work or whatever you
And we
say.
can certify that ahead of time. We'll get confirmation from the town clerk of whatever she needs to advise you of, as well as from the town attorney of whatever he needs to advise you of. And they may both be able to attend the meeting, but if they can't, you'll at least have their written advice before the meeting.
This looks perfect. 9:30.
Would it be helpful or anything if the youth vote people came to the meeting on Friday?
Well, it's open to the public, so
Yeah,
Okay.
absolutely.
come if you.
We might just vote and adjourn.
right, it might not be very long.
Right, it might not be worth like the traffic, but if you can get here, get here.
Yeah.
Okay.
And are we meeting here in this building?
Yes.
Yeah, we have to.
Right here in this room.
Right here in this room.
Okay.
9:30 on Friday morning, we'll warn the meeting, and I'll communicate with Bob Fisher, the town attorney, and Hillary Francis, the town clerk, to get their materials to the board in advance of the meeting. It might not be until Thursday, but
Can I ask you, when
Thank you
it,
for
when
all
it
your-
failed last time, I lost that piece of information. When was it up for a vote and it failed?
In March of 2015.
At town meeting?
No,
Or
I
on the
went to a
ballot?
public, yeah, I was on
the
the
public
ballot.
vote.
Yeah.
Yeah, I feel like I remember that. So long, it seems so long ago.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Thank you so
For your
much.
hard work.
Is there anyone else that would like to make a comment on something that's not on tonight's agenda? Yes, come on up.
may I make a comment to that?
You can comment on whatever you'd like.
And I do. I'm Nick Nickerson, and I'm from Brattleboro. And my initial impression of that presentation was that very young, inexperienced people who have never held a job, have never been self-sufficient, never had to pay the bills, standing on their 2 feet, are asking to make laws over people who have. I find that obnoxious, and I'd ask you not to support that vote. Thank you.
Thanks,
Thank you. Is there anyone else in the public that,
We just clarify that we
Yeah.
wouldn't be necessarily supporting it.
We're just putting
it on the ballot so people can
Yeah.
vote.
Squash it.
Well, and also, I want to also piggyback that and say we wouldn't be making any judgment because sometimes the people who do hold jobs and have so-called responsibilities aren't the most responsible people. So we're not necessarily going to be making any character judgments
Yeah.
either
Yeah.
with that.
yeah, anyone else? Yes, sir.
Briefly, thank you for that decision. I'm Mark Tully. I live in Brattleboro. I've been helping the youth leadership collect signatures for this, do some secretarial work from the Facebook to on the liaison to Facebook, because apparently that's only for the aged. And so I've been witnessing these youth work this campaign for months, and I just want to point out this vote that you're taking is to put it on the ballot. And that's it. From then on, it's a couple months of public debate, such as that. I can't wait for the youth to be able to answer that and many other questions. I've seen them do it. Tomorrow's brown bag lunch at the River Garden. Israel leading a presentation and discussion on this. A couple weeks from now, it'll be in the Putney Huddle. They're booking a forum at the library. All of that is already going on, and probably other stuff since the last time I paid attention. And I think the vote you should take, since the people have decided by that 5% margin that they want this debate, even people who don't like it, signed it to put it on the ballot so that democracy could work. And that's what I would like you to keep in mind when you take that vote.
Great, thanks. Is there anyone else that would like to say something about something that's not on the agenda? All right, seeing none, we've actually got a nice thing that we're going to do next. There's going to be a presentation of the First Responder Service of the Year Award to members of the Brattleboro Fire Department. And so we don't get a lot of good things that we get to see here at this meeting, so this is a good one.
I think we ought to probably stand up for this one.
We should stand. I'm standing on America.
Good evening, and thank you very much for making time for us tonight. My name is Dan Batesy, and I'm the Chief of Emergency Medical Services for the Department of Health. And I echo that this is indeed a great event tonight, and I appreciate everyone for turning out and being here. The Department of Health each year gives out both individual and service-based awards for excellence in emergency medical services. Nominations are solicited throughout the year and evaluated by a team of EMS providers selected by the state, and awards are given out due to the merit of the nomination. This year, Brattleboro Fire Department was selected as First Responder Agency of the Year. And although the nomination has chosen to remain anonymous, the nomination in this particular case was accompanied by examples of excellence in first response. So a number of situations where the Brattleboro Fire Department made a significant impact in patient care and benefited our EMS system. They also mentioned their steadfast dedication to emergency medical services and also a dedication to our EMS system. And in addition to the nomination, I'll personally echo that and just add a couple little bits. The Brattleboro Fire Department has supported our EMS system in many different ways. And in particular, they've been a model for other first response agencies to mimic. They were early adopters of our electronic run reporting system, and in a time when we have only about half of our first response agencies adding data to our overall data collection system, that's a great thing, and we routinely point to them and their efforts on behalf of that data collection system. They were also the first first response agency to voluntarily join the inspection process. We inspect every ambulance service in the state of Vermont, and there's no statutory obligation for a first response agency to do that. And when we announced that we were looking for volunteers to begin the process of integrating first response agencies, Chief Bukasi's voice was the first one that came forward to say, we want you to come down here anytime you want, and we have. These are the kinds of things that truly go into a great EMS system. And these are the kinds of things that we look for, again, as a model for other agencies. So on behalf of the Department of Health and on behalf of the Emergency Medical Services Office, congratulations to the Brattleboro Fire Department for First Responder Service of the Year.
Thank you.
Yeah, we want to speak.
Mike's like, I'm out of here.
Thank you very much.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
Go out on a high note.
I know, leave one on a high note. Next, we're going to have a presentation about the Connecticut River Transit, Southeastern Vermont Transit, or the Current. They've done some analysis of the bus system, the bus routes, and are you going to give us an update? you can come on up to our table.
The select board has copies, I believe, of the handout of what I've prepared, and I have copies if anybody else would like them.
Great colors.
Thank you again for having us. My name is Randy Shoemaker. I'm the CEO of Southeast Vermont Transit. It is the mover in Wilmington and the current based in Rockingham. We both serve the Brattleboro area, but it is the current whose responsibility is of the local system. And we came before you, excuse me, just about a year ago with the intention of changing the schedules in Brattleboro. They had been done years and years ago by a consultant from Colorado, and they were fairly well done at the time. We updated them in 2014, very briefly, very modestly, when Connecticut River Transit merged with the mover, and so we spent the last year doing research. The state of Vermont helped us by hiring a consulting firm, and we came to you a year ago with results of our public outreach, of trying to find out what people wanted in the bus system and what we needed to change, and what worked well and what didn't work well. So we have completed that work, and we've also completed 33 versions of a proposed schedule. There's just not enough money to do everything that everybody wants, and we would love to have more funding, which is hard to come by these days, but we think we've come up with the best of what we can do to stretch our dollars. I've summarized these in a very brief overview for the board, and I promise I won't read it to you, but I'll go over the highlights with your permission. I'm on page 2 of looking at the goals. Clearly, we wanted to serve the people in Brattleboro better, the riders and the non-riders. We had lots of input on how to do that. And we wanted to improve performance. We wanted to be more efficient with our resources. We wanted to increase ridership. Ridership is very important to the state and federal government, who funds us, funds most of what we have. And so we're always on the lookout to increase ridership opportunities and better service. Page 2, data gathering. We, as I mentioned a year ago, we were here. We did rider surveys, we did employer surveys, bus drivers, partners, general public, and we met with local officials, and we talked about what they were looking for and what they needed. The surveys were very informative. They were online, they were handed out. We got an awful lot of really good input. The folks in Brattleboro are not shy in giving us their opinion, which is good. That's what we wanted. And we had 2 public meetings as well last August, just about a year ago. The key findings, page 4, really no surprises. Our schedule last year had all 3 routes almost serving every bus stop we had at different times. And so for a rider trying to plan where they want to go and when they want to go, it really depended on what hour of the day it was as to what bus you were getting on, and it's pretty confusing. Walmart, Price Chopper are clearly important destinations on the blue line. The red line, we had, as we anticipated, strong ridership from West Brattleboro. A lot of the residents in the area who ride the bus originate from in that area, and they primarily wanted to get to Price Chopper, and at the time, that was a 2-bus ride. There was a transfer downtown, there was a wait, and it was really tough just to go to the market. The white line, which serves north of Brattleboro on Putney Road, clearly Hannaford was the big draw there. We were going up to SIT at the time, and we were going around about, again, not nearly as efficiently as we could, but we were also starting late morning, and a lot of people wanted to ride the bus early in the morning, so we heard that loud and clear on the white line. On our proposed new system, obviously we're going to keep the red, white, and blue lines. We think that people are familiar with at least the concept of it. We've changed a little bit of the routes, but not a lot. The red line will now go from West Brattleboro to Price Chopper, so there'll be no transferring for riders who need to go from that area down to Market 32 or Price Chopper. And so that's a one-seat ride now. We also tried to make sure that on the White Line from Cotton Mill to Bennett Drive, which is Supreme Fitness, on the other side of Route 91, we need that area to turn the bus around and come back.
Can I ask you a stupid question before you go
Sure.
on? What's a one-seat ride?
It's when you don't have to get off from one bus and get on to another.
Oh, okay.
That would be a two-seat ride. Good question. And then on the Blue Line, as you can read, we'll still be going to Hinsdale and Walmart. The town of Hinsdale gives us, I think, $16,000 a year, and the state of New Hampshire gives us a little bit of money to fund that route. This goes back years and years, probably the late 2000s, when the town of Brattleboro was soliciting funding for that. That was put together back quite a ways. But we also wanted to do a quick loop out to the new Winston Prouty Center, and while we were there, we could hit Living Memorial Park and Brattleboro Music Center. So we'll be doing that occasionally as well. The timing there is good. We wanted to minimize the transfer times. That's not always easy. We think we did a fairly good job. There's still going to be times of the day you're going to wait 40 minutes. There's going to be times you're going to get right off one bus and get on to another. But we tried to make those as convenient as possible. 1 hour headways means the bus takes a 1 hour loop. It goes back to the place it started in 1 hour. So we did not have that in the previous schedule, but now on the Red Line and White Line, if the bus leaves, for instance, at 10 minutes past the hour at your stop, it'll be 10 minutes after 8, after 9, after 10,
Ooh,
et cetera.
that's nice.
So you can plan on that.
Yeah, that's
So
good.
we were able to do that pretty much on the red and white lines. The downtown stops, we updated. Peter was instrumental in helping us. Over time, we had demarcated bus stops, but they kind of eroded into drop zones and parking and the demand for parking downtown. So our rider said, I need a nice clear stop beside the transportation center to get on off my bus and shop around downtown or stroll around town. So we picked the entrance to the Congregational Church here, and right directly across the street, the entrance to the post office parking lot to get off the road so we don't stop traffic. We're going to try that for as long as we can, and hopefully that will work without incurring any losses of parking spaces. We mentioned about the one-seat ride, and we identified some new stops, and we deleted some underutilized ones. We took some hours from some parts of the route and put them into others. We tried to keep the number of hours the same because we don't have any new funding, but we started with about 8,700 hours of service, and I think we're still counting, but I think we're up to about 9,100 hours of service, and the state of Vermont's going to give us approximately half of that. We'll have to raise or finance the other half of those hours. Yes, so there's another 400 hours of service to support. The route map on page 6, I warn you, is work in progress. We're working with the design company now, the ad agency, on how the brochure is going to lay out and work, and the schedules you'll see shortly are still being finalized. They are pretty much done, but they're going to appear much more clearly to read, and we're doing everything we can to make them as large and clear as we can. And we'll have a large print version of the schedule as well.
Can I ask you, or make a comment before you go
Sure.
on? I'm looking at page 6, and it says, stops are located on the same side of the road as they are indicated on this map.
And that's coming out.
Oh, yeah, because it doesn't
okay.
indicate, like, I'm like, what side of the
That's
street?
what I thought.
So we're gonna take, that's one of the changes we're gonna.
Oh, okay.
But you will indicate what side of the street the stop will be on somehow, will you?
Yes, maybe what we'll do is, we tried to do that with where the name of the stop is, and we could probably make that clearer.
Okay, I'm just speaking from my experience on
Yes.
people, tell people the wrong side of Main Street because we have no clue, because you can't tell.
Yeah.
I think I mentioned this to you before.
Yes, you did.
Yeah.
Loud and clear.
Yeah.
So are places in bold stops? Like, for example, is Great River Terrace actually a stop?
Yes, it is, and the circle is a stop.
Oh,
And again,
sweet.
that's something we're adding to the final version of everything. Something like McDonald's is a marker, a place marker.
Okay.
One of the comments we heard was, this isn't much of a map, we can't find our way around town, and Runnings is another one. Oak Grove School, places like that are just benchmarks for people
Yeah.
to find out where they are. But if you have a circle, and you have a name next to it, you have a bus stop.
Right on.
And we can stop between stops as long as it's safe. The red line, as I mentioned, is going from Westgate to Price Chopper. We're not going to Guilford on every loop, but we'll go several times a day. And the weekday and Saturday service hours, you can see, are slightly less than they are now, but very, very close. We talked about the 60-minute headways, and we tried to get people to transfer to Hannaford's on the White Line as often as we could. Page 8 is a sample schedule for the red line. The times are virtually what they're going to be, but again, the presentation is going to be different. We'll have an oversized brochure. We'll have very large print web pages, so this will pop out. But the schedule is, of any of the schedules that's complicated, it's probably the red line. We have a bunch of different times where you need several buses in different places at the same time, like Omega and Exit 1 Industrial Park. So we're borrowing a little bit in the morning from other routes to cover that, but this is in response to our surveys. We went out and we asked everybody what they thought, and we heard people saying, I can't get to work now with your new schedule, and here's the time I have to go to work. We took every one of those comments and twisted something around to make that fit. We may miss the people at SIT because we're not going there anymore, and we may miss one or two others, but I think we had a pretty high batting average, and again, the input was key to making those changes. It's not perfect, but we're glad of the input.
Randy, another question?
Sure.
I was trying to find a schedule to get from Price Chopper to Guilford. And is that going to be added to the schedule at some point?
So
Or did I just miss it?
you can see on the bottom part of page 8, there is
went too far.
the outbound, Market 32 to Westgate. And so you would leave in the second column, depart Market 32, and you can see Guilford's Country Store. There's 3
I
times a
can't
day.
find, I'm not on the right page.
I have it on page 8, but it's on the bottom of the red line schedule. There's
Okay.
2 schedules on the red line page.
Yeah.
And it's on the bottom one. So you got the right page there.
Okay.
So it's the
Okay.
outbound Market 32 to Westgate, is that what you're looking at?
Yes. If you look under,
Oh, there it is.
yeah,
I was looking on the end of it. I
right.
should have been looking, I was looking
And
at
this
the
is
wrong
what
end.
we have to people have to get used to.
Thanks a lot.
No, and what we'll talk about briefly later is, we're thinking about going live with this October 1st. I know the handout says the 8th, but we think we can do it on the 1st. And we're going to print brochures and mail them to everybody in Brattleboro and West Brattleboro. So everybody will have a copy of this, and they'll get it probably in the second week of September. So they'll have a 2-week period to get used to the schedule, to read it, call with questions. We'll help people plan their trips, and then we'll go live on October 1st. And it'll be on the website even quicker. So for questions just like those, we hope we can prepare everybody. The White Line, again, we're working on transfers there, and the White Line, as I mentioned, starts at 11:15 now. It'll start at 6:35 in the morning, and that'll be a big help, I think, for not only the residents up there, but for the people at Great River Terrace.
Yeah.
We've had a lot of discussion with them, and we think we're going to provide good service there when they're open.
Well, I'm biased, I appreciate that, but I also work for them, so.
Great. I'm looking at the White Line schedule. If you have that on your handout appears to be in a different order than mine. But on the White Line, there's an inbound Bennett Drive to Transportation Center. I wanted to pick up on a comment Peter made at a public meeting about the Brattleboro Police Station. We didn't want to pull in and out of there on every trip, so we're going to make that available upon request. People can either ask on the bus or call us. We'll radio the driver. We'd be happy to pull right in there upon request.
Do you go to the retreat? Am I missing? Oh, here it is, Brattleboro Retreat on the blue line. Okay.
Yes, and so the retreat is one of those where we're going to cover it mostly with the White Line, but first thing in the morning, the blue line's going to tiptoe up there.
Okay, good.
And when I mentioned Groundwork Shelter, we were in touch with them, and we're able to arrange a bus that leaves very early in the morning and comes right downtown and goes right to the retreat,
Great.
which is great for their clients. So again, there's good input there from the public. The Blue Line it still will be going to New Hampshire. We mentioned the Winston-Prouty Loop, and those times may not be perfect. We don't know yet. When we were doing the research, not a lot there was going on, but every indication is we're going there enough times during the day that I think we'll be in pretty good shape. There's no Saturday service on the Blue Line, but we do go to where the Blue Line goes on the White Line. So Saturday's a little bit kinky, but we're still covering the base over there. Other changes in our schedule, I mentioned we added several hundred hours of service. The police station, we deleted a small part of South Main Street. We have almost no people getting on or off on South Main Street, but we wanted to try going up to Cotton Mill with the incubator businesses there. So we're hoping to develop ridership there. And again, I mentioned the one-seat ride concept. Those were the major changes we made. When we did the second round of public input, we went back to the same sources that we went to a year ago. We asked non-riders, riders, businesses, here's the schedule, what do you think? We had 2 public meetings in this room on July 23rd. Peter attended one of them, which bolstered our numbers. Thank you, Peter. Select board meeting tonight. The Vermont Agency of Transportation needs to approve this schedule. They've been involved since day one. We have their tacit approval, but our board for my company has approved it, and so we're hoping to just finish up the brochure and the website and get down to communicating this and get to business.
You said you cut some of South Main, but usually you guys slow down by the drop-in center and people jump on as needed.
Yes.
Is that still fine?
That is still, yeah.
Great, thank you.
Yep. Feedback that we received.
Okay, what car you actually run and jump on?
I think we've gone over almost everything here that we've talked about. Evening service is one thing we're lacking. Clearly, that was listed on the survey, as well as Sunday service. We had somebody said, I want a bus at my door whenever I want it to take me wherever I want it.
Yeah.
We didn't think that was going to happen, but if we get more money, we'll add evening service. We heard that loud and clear, and we can't stretch it any farther than we already are. So we hear it, we know that there's a weakness there, and there's a hope in another year or two we'll continue to get funding. Our federal and state funding through VTrans has been level for about 7 years. Absolutely level. We may get a 1 or 2% increase here or there, but that's at the expense of some other transit agency, and so things are pretty tight in Montpelier. The people we work with are just all-stars. They're wonderful, but they don't have the resources to distribute that they would like. So there's a recognized need there, particularly state funds.
Maybe we can get one of our reps, or 2 or 3,
Yeah.
on that
Yeah.
mission.
So I think that's really all I have. Again, we hope to hear whatever the select board has to say, or any comments or questions you may have. Clearly, we didn't want to go to press and go charging off without appearing before the board and soliciting your opinions. We're not going to produce the brochure overnight, so if Peter or the board or anybody has any questions or comments, please let me know.
Is this also going to be online too? Will there be, or is there a hope? I understand funds are tight. Because I know with other cities and things, you can go online and see public transportation schedules
Yes.
and things like that.
So, funny you ask. It's called AVL, which is Automatic Vehicle Locator, or Where's My Bus?
Okay.
And a lot of applications, you can just go onto an app onto your phone and hit a button and find out where your bus is. You can not only see where your bus is, but you can have the next 3 or 4 arrival times at your stop predicted for you. And we have that service in Wilmington at the Mover. We've had it for 3 years. Of the 8 transit operators in Vermont, we were the ones selected to do a pilot program. So we've been working on this for 3 years now, and it's still got some bugs to work out. But the long and short of it is, we ended up with 4 extra devices, and the devices are a transponder in the bus that sends a GPS signal over the phone to a satellite. The satellite connects to a home computer that tracks where you are all the time and how good you are to your schedule. It builds a performance record so that it can predict in the future when the bus is going to be there. And we found that we had 4 extra, so we have put those in 4 Brattleboro buses. And we're testing it as we speak. We're probably a month or so away, but there will be a big news release and a hoopla when we introduce this software and this availability in Brattleboro. Brattleboro's a perfect place for it. And it was just the right amount of buses, and it's all good. So very soon, our riders will be able to go on, right now we're on 4 different apps. We're on Google Maps, we're on Transit, and we're on Swiftly, and we're on one other that I can't remember, but Transit and Swiftly are the 2 that are really, really good, because they show where the bus is. You can, if you stare at it long enough, you can see the bus move. And so to answer your question, yes, it's coming, and it's coming shortly, but we haven't promoted it yet because it's still in the beta stage, and
Great.
they still have some kinks to work out.
Thank you.
So it's coming.
Great.
Yeah.
The only thing I can think of is on the white line, it says groundwork shelter. Randy, maybe you can chime in. Should that say drop-in?
Well, it might be the one at Morningside.
It is Morningside.
Oh.
And they asked us to say groundwork shelter, yeah.
Okay.
So then that would be.
Yeah, I thought it was the drop.
They got a bunch of things going on there, but the word that they gave us was groundwork shelter.
Yeah, that's great.
Yeah.
I appreciate all the work you put into this and the feedback, you taking the feedback seriously. I know that probably a lot of the people I work with, sounds like Groundworks gave you a lot of feedback, which means that I don't really have a lot of questions personally.
Thank you. Well, I hope it works.
Well, I mean,
Talk is cheap,
I'm
but,
sure
yeah,
it will. It
we've
looks
certainly
really good.
researched it, yeah. We did this with 4 routes in the Upper Valley, in Bellows Falls, Springfield, and the ridership there is up 24% from where it was. So we're hoping that Brattleboro's ridership has been skidding the last couple, 3 years. It's down a little bit, so we'd like to turn that around and hopefully get some non-riders on it.
Well, I think that the way the schedule's laid out is so much easier to figure it out.
Great.
You don't have to be like a rocket scientist to figure out how to get on a bus. You know, I like that.
Good. Glad to hear it. Glad to hear it.
So,
My kids took
Thank
the
you.
fish out of the fish tank.
does anyone in the public have any comments that they'd like to make? Yeah, please come on up.
Sorry. Nick Nickerson. Wonder if, are you ready? How long would it take to gear up from the time you learn that driverless cars are available? So how long would it take you to gear up so that you could offer that service
Driverless
to the
cars.
citizens?
Driverless bus?
No, driverless cars. You would be able to go. You can have whatever. You can have a driverless car go right to the person's house, pick them up, take them, bring them back. Custom your own chauffeur.
Yeah.
How long would it take you to gear up for that? I mean, is it ludicrous or what?
No, I'm not going to say it's ludicrous.
Nothing's
I
ludicrous
just think it's
anymore,
a ways in
Nick.
the future. I
You
really
think it's
can't
way in
answer.
the future?
Yeah, I think so.
Nothing to worry about now.
At least my.
I wouldn't call it
I
ludicrous,
think you're a
though.
little complacent.
Never know.
Okay, it could be. Could very well be.
Thank you. And so you said the 1st of October? Is that
First
what
of
it was?
October, the schedule would go into effect
Okay.
if we can continue the printed production product. The brochure is really the longest term thing, and we've been at that for several weeks now.
Yeah,
and
great.
We're getting close.
All right, great.
And it takes 2 weeks for the mailing to hit.
Okay.
So it may be the 8th, it may be the 15th, but we're hoping October 1st is a nice start date.
Great.
Thank you
Well,
for your
thank you.
thoughtfulness with
Thank you
this.
very
Yeah,
much.
thank you.
You've always been very supportive. Thank you for all your support.
Yeah, thank you for the work.
Thank you, this is great.
Thank you.
I'm very pleased. I can't wait to share it.
So now we need to convene as water and sewer commissioners. So would someone like to make a motion?
So moved.
We have a motion to convene as water and sewer commissioners. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Motion carries 5-0.
Nice, kid.
First up is a dump truck that we that Steve Barrett would like us to allow him to purchase.
Good evening. I'm here in front of the board to request permission to approve a bid to replace a 1992 dump truck, which has served us well. We put bids out for this, and on July 13th, we received 4 bids. There's different types of vehicles, and there's also a different kind of body on the back, and that's where the price range comes in. The first bid we received from Delury Sales of Hoosick, New York, with a Viking package equipment on the back, was $108,519. And that was an international truck. The second one from Delury's is also an international truck, but has a different, again, body. It's an HP Fairfield equipment for the rear part of the truck, the chassis of the truck. And that came in at $112,756. Then Patriot from Westminster, Vermont, had a Freightliner with a Viking equipment, and that was $119,929. And then again, Patriot from Westminster with a Freightliner with the HP Fairfield equipment at $124,000. So we're recommending that we accept the low bid of $108,519 from Delury Sale. Now, within these bids, there was also additional items that we're proposing, which still makes Delury low bid, and it's a auto lube system, a bolt-on stainless steel asphalt apron that's used to pave, and an extended warranty. And so the total, we're recommending accepting the low bid from Delury Sales of North Hoosick, New York, with a Viking equipment, Viking Kives equipment, auto lube system, bolt-on apron, asphalt apron, and extended warranty for a total of $121,954. Within the utilities budget this year, we had approved capital item of $195,000 for this purchase. So if the board has any questions, I'm here to answer them.
Steve, just in case anybody asks me at the price chopper, what's a body spreader and what's an asphalt apron?
Well, the apron goes on the back. If you look at the back of the truck, you have the tailgate, and there's an apron there that's designed to, so the utilities crew would do patching for utility trenches and things of that nature. And then the other was the body spreader. This is a backup. This is used as a backup sander for the highway department. Although it's very simplistic, there's it's just a tail end sander that bolts on. It's used in emergency situations or a backup when we have failure in the highway. And it's also used for utility driveways and, the water treatment facility or the wastewater.
I have a question.
I think you're spreading bodies around. Someone's going to ask.
Someone's going to ask, that's right.
And this is probably just a really silly question.
Sillier than that?
I always ask about the pros and cons of cost savings, even though obviously you know better than I do. So what were the price differences about, in addition to body differences of the vehicle?
It's a type of vehicle, like with dump trucks, there's a variation of all different types. And the international, we have been fairly successful. Virtually all of our fleet is international. And they're, I guess, a mildly priced dump truck. And then as you go up, there's different features. But the international has met our needs. So that, in some cases, you may have a community that uses their trucks differently that may support a Freightliner, for instance, and it may apply to their situation. In this case, the low bid will work for us, and it will give us the service that we need. The truck we're replacing was an international, and that was a 1992, which provided excellent service. So we're pretty much staying on that line.
Thank you.
It seems to make sense.
Thank you.
With the cost savings, you could get a sweet sound system.
There's
They
Tim.
come standard with
Just trying to entertain Jan.
Dad, I swear.
Make sure that goes in the minutes. Sweet sound system.
Going, Chris is notes.
Does anyone in the public have any questions about the bid award for the dump truck? Seeing none, would someone like to make a motion?
I'd like to make a motion. I'd like to make a motion to award a bid for the Utilities Division dump truck to Delury Sales and Service in the total amount of $121,954.
We have a motion to award a bid for a Utilities Division dump truck to Delary Sales and Service. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Motion carries 5-0. Next up is odor control at the wastewater
Stinky little
treatment
thing.
facility.
So the next item is, during the utilities budget session, we discussed odor emissions from the wastewater treatment plant. And you, as the Board of Water and Sewer Commissioners, funded money in the capital budget to support a study to be done, an analysis of the odors that are emitted from the treatment plant and how to resolve those issues. So tonight, I'm seeking approval to approve an engineering agreement for odor control study of the wastewater treatment plant on Vernon Road by Robert Boker of Boker and Associates. The purpose of this study is to conduct an odor emission inventory of the wastewater treatment plant and create a dispersion model to identify the extent of the odors outside the wastewater treatment plant property. Once the inventory has been completed, a model has been completed, a strategy will be developed to control odors so they are no longer a nuisance outside the wastewater treatment plant facility. So the goal here is to keep our odors to ourselves within the confines of the plant itself. We did quite a bit of research, and also Wayne Elliott from Aldridge and Elliott of Essex, Vermont, has been a support engineer for the town of Brattleboro. And we came up with this Robert Boker, who has an extensive experience. For over 30 years, he has experience in planning, design, and operation of wastewater facilities. His career includes 9 years with the U.S. Environmental Protection Agency of Research and Development, and over 20 years as a consulting engineer. Since 1985, Mr. Boker has specialized in the control of odors in wastewater collection and treatment plants, solid waste processing, landfills, industrial process waste management facilities. He's considered an international expert in the odor control and waste handling systems. So when we talked, we actually interviewed Mr. Boker before, and he's dealt with a lot of situations. The odor situation is not unique to Brattleboro. It's all over the country at different facilities. Originally, these facilities were built in off areas, in very commercial areas, and what's happened is residential establishments have moved closer and businesses have moved closer. There's more emphasis. The wastewater treatment plants cleaned up the river, and that was a good thing, and now people want to use the river, and so it ups the ante for these wastewater treatment plants, not only for the quality of water that we must treat, but also for not to emit odors. And eventually, you know, we're looking at, we'd like to have a bike facility that goes to New Hampshire from Brattleboro next to the treatment plant. There was land that was purchased right next to the treatment plant that's going to be used for recreation, so it's very important. Our own staff at the wastewater treatment plant, working with Wayne Elliott, developed an odor control program internally with recommendations and used certain chemicals to sequester the odors, and it's been very successful. Also in the budget, you approved $70,000 for chemical application or other equipment that could be used to keep the odors down. The number of complaints has virtually dropped off, which is pretty exciting, and it shows that the investment is worth it to keep these odors within the confines of the treatment plant. And I really need to commend Bruce Lawrence, the chief operator, and his staff at the wastewater treatment plant for that.
Thanks, Bruce.
Now, originally what we talked about is, since here we go, now we're ready to do this analysis and we don't have the odors, what should we do? And we suggested, the town, Bruce and myself, suggested that maybe we should do some testing under the current conditions that there aren't a lot of odors. And after quite a bit of thought, we talked to Mr. Boker on Monday and did a phone conference, and he thought about it quite a bit. He said he would prefer for us to take the odor control systems off and then within 1 week begin his testing. So if approved tonight,
That makes sense.
we're gonna go offline. We went offline yesterday. So there's no odor control. The public may experience some odors. If they do, we want to hear about it. Please call us and let us know. And then the testing will begin next week. So that's what he recommends. He's the expert. We support that. So that's going to be how we proceed. Once what will happen with the study is they actually do air testing at the facility itself, and then they do this dispersion model, which actually will determine, they take all this information, the data from weather reports, they put it into the computer, and it will tell with the winds, the southerly winds, and the barometer readings, all that information goes in, and it will give us a model of where we could expect odors, how far within the town, based on this model. We have a pretty good idea because we've documented the complaints that we've had over the last 3 or 4 years. So we have a pretty good idea. We're also going to give him the information after he does the model to see how it compares. So that way it will give us good information and how to deal with it. Then the Boker will also develop a strategy to deal with it long term. Look at all the different methods, look at the existing odor control methods that we're using, and also the filter systems that are in place that were done with the upgrade. So after all that, what I'm looking for is I'm recommending that we accept the odor study proposal from Boker and Associates, who is from Scarborough, Maine, by the way, for $39,910.
So through this study, we're going to get the information we need to figure out how to deal with the problem. That's the goal.
That is the goal, and then for long term, and then for different situations that may come up. And so it will give us a menu, and also as a staff. Although we've been successful, they may find out what we've done is the key. But additional information is going to be helpful.
Does anyone have any questions or comments? No? Does anyone in the public have any questions or comments about the odor control plan?
Speechless.
Would anyone like to make a motion?
Let's try and keep it straight, please. I move we authorize the town manager to execute a standard form of agreement between owner and engineer for study and report phase professional services with Bowker and Associates Incorporated in the amount of $39,910.
We have a motion to authorize the town manager to execute a standard form of agreement between the owner and engineer for a study report phase professional services with Bunker and Associates. All those in favor say aye.
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 Anyone opposed? Motion carries 5-0. Thank you, Steve.
Thank you.
I see what you did.
I need a motion to adjourn as liquor commissioners, water and sewer commissioners.
So moved.
We have a motion to adjourn as water and sewer commissioners. All those in favor say aye.
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 Anyone opposed? Motion carries 5-0. Now we're going to unfinished business, and the first order of unfinished business is the second reading and public hearing on the health, sanitation, and fire safety inspection ordinance. I guess what I need to do first is open the public hearing, so we officially have a public hearing. And I don't know, do you want to recap?
Yes, I'll give a quick summary. I know the board is well aware of this from your first reading of this matter, but for the record and for the public, I just want to summarize that the state of Vermont has imposed an unfunded mandate on municipalities in Vermont related to the enforcement of the rental housing code. There's some additional things that the state is now requiring that a health officer do, a municipal health officer do, when they go out to make inspections at these properties. So instead of just going out on a complaint basis and looking at particular issues, when we get a complaint about a particular issue, we go and we have to do a more comprehensive inspection. That's a challenge for us. It's a great challenge for many small communities around the state that perform these functions on a voluntary basis. Some of the larger communities like Brattleboro, we perform it on a part-time basis where there's somebody whose primary function is something else. In our case, it's Assistant Fire Chief Lenny Howard, who does a really good job as our primary health officer. And then we have assistant health officers for particular functions that support Lenny in his work. We have done some changes. We've worked together to streamline how the inspections are going to be documented so that we can make this additional work as efficient as possible. But one of the concerns was when there are violations that are noted, how to make sure that that enforcement process can also be as efficient as possible. And under the existing set of rules, the violation notices under the rental housing code would be written as violations of state statute. We want to be able to write those as violations of town code for the ease of enforcement and follow up on those tickets that will be written when they don't achieve the compliance that we're seeking. And so Town Attorney Bob Fisher prepared this ordinance. It's a very simple ordinance by which we will simply be, you will, as the select board, be simply adopting the state rental housing code in its entirety as a part of the town's code. And the language is such that as the state modifies its rental housing code from time to time, that'll automatically also simultaneously update the town's code. So we recommend that you approve this tonight on second reading. Be appropriate to see if there's any public comment on it, and then hopefully you'll proceed to put this in place. Thank you.
Does anyone on the select board have any comments or questions? And I'll ask the public, do you have any comments or questions? I actually have one. We call this, and I believe you, an unfunded mandate on the town. In general, I don't know if you folks want to answer this now or you can think about it, because do you have enough resources to do what you need to do in relation to the health, and sanitation and fire safety inspections now, and then adding this to it? I mean, I'm assuming the answer is no.
I'll answer that. It stretches us thin because we're devoting resources that would primarily be focused on fire department activities to instead be in health and safety code enforcement activities.
Because this is really premature, and I shouldn't even be bringing this up. Because it's really, to me, it's more of it's a question for budget time.
Mm-hmm.
Because I know there are a lot of issues that people have in town about the conditions of buildings and the conditions of things that we don't address, and I don't fault anybody for that because we don't have the resources. So it was just one of these things that, we don't have the resources to do what we need to do at a minimum, and now we're adding something on top of it.
Exactly.
And so I just want to put it out there, that these kind of issues are depending on what they are big issues. They impact neighborhoods.
Absolutely.
They impact, people's lives. They impact our town. And, in some ways through no fault of our own, because the state is saying you got to do this, we're adding to something that we can't keep up with in the first place through no fault of our own, because we're stretched so thin on resources. So I'm just sort of bringing this up prematurely to have a discussion.
I would characterize it a little differently. So I think we're keeping up, but in keeping up, there's an opportunity lost in some other part of our operation to perform, all of our functions as effectively as we can.
Well, I think that's what I'm saying.
The alternative, though, that is what you're saying, and you properly mentioned budget time. I mean, the alternative would be to hire an additional person to be a code enforcement officer and put Lenny back to work full-time for the fire department, and the other code enforcement folks that are doing this as part of their job where their core function is something else, let them be full-time in their core function. I would say that's something that Lenny in particular and the fire department in general would be very grateful for. We've had some conversations in the past about looking for opportunities to see if there's a smarter way for us to do the health officer function. It's also characteristic of lots of what we do up in this part of the world, not just in Brattleboro, but throughout Vermont and more generally New England. Some states are better funded at some of these functions. But I can tell you, based on my experience in Florida, there's nobody, even in, say, Massachusetts or Connecticut, that is as well-staffed as communities typically are in Florida and in other locations around the country. So then you look at Vermont as compared to Massachusetts and Connecticut, and we stretch really thin in a lot of different areas. This is a really good example of that. But it's by far not the only example of that.
Yeah. No, and oh, I'm sorry,
I
Brandy.
was just gonna say, I would like to see numbers for what a position would look like when we get closer, just out of curiosity.
Sure.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. I mean, it's funny. I had a conversation with somebody this morning about this very issue, and it really does impact. And their situation is not the only one. I mean, it's like duplicated in other neighborhoods in town, and I don't fault anybody who's with the town now because they are stretched so thin. But some of this stuff does seriously impact people, where they live and their neighborhoods and everything. So it just sort of came up at the.
Even landlords that are, I was about to say, even landlords that are absentee, like how to get in contact with them to fix, because I find that, I call it semi-slumming situations where, the landlords are totally off-site and not necessarily responsive, and how do we, if we're put in this position where we're having to enforce, and then, of course, it's almost like your job is to be a part-time stalker, to try to get a hold, to use the term lightly, to get a hold of a landlord that doesn't even live in the state to fix something and bring something up to code to be proper for people to live in.
Yeah.
So, piggybacking on what you're saying, it brings up a huge challenge.
Yeah.
We'll price a
Yeah,
full-time code enforcement officer
Yeah.
and bring that to you as part of the budget.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sure.
I mean, I just.
A couple of things. When you mentioned it as a mandate in another code, it reminded me of a lot of the things that have happened over the years with the school district, where there's so much reporting that has to be done to the state that we have extra people. I think we have a person whose job is to medicate, and that's just a sort of an aside, but in terms of the state assigning these things. But the other thing I thought is that this might be another thing to put on the agenda of the regional hub conversation, because it's not something that some of the smaller towns have to deal with. We have to deal with it because we're a housing center for the region.
Exactly right. And it is in that conversation.
Yeah.
Yep.
Not surprising.
Okay. Are there any other comments? And we're going to close a public hearing, and then we will have a motion. Oh, we don't have to don't we have to vote on this?
Yeah.
Yes, no, we're changing the rules.
Yeah.
Right there.
Yeah, you do need to.
Okay, we have to figure out what the motion is.
Did I
Do you want to read it?
do one or
Yeah.
not?
I can,
It's here, yeah.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Oh, I missed it.
I'll make a motion to approve the amendments to the Code of Ordinances at Chapter 8. That's Health, Sanitation, and Fire Safety Inspections. Article 3, the Rental Housing Code, as presented.
We have a motion to approve the amendments to the Code of Ordinances at Chapter 8, Article 3, as presented. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Anyone against, opposed?
No, I'm not against. I'm just confused. So does this mean, I just need to make sure I know what I'm voting on. Does this mean we're voting to actually adopt the state code without knowing the implications of how much more work weight
Well,
this is?
basically, the state is making us do it.
Okay, so we have to do it anyway.
It's not quite that easy.
I'm sorry.
Well, we have the state telling us to do certain things, and we don't want to change the ordinance every time, so we're adopting the state code.
But that doesn't mean we can't still look for somebody
Right.
besides Lynn
Oh,
Peter can
okay.
explain.
for the next fiscal year.
Okay.
No.
So what we're required to do is there's a different expectation, a higher expectation that's been established as a state mandate for how we will conduct the inspections. What do we do when we go to a site,
No, I
right?
understand that. It's just that, so we're voting to adopt that, but then we're still going to be, no.
So what we've been told is that we have to do more things when we go out to the site to do an inspection.
I understand that.
Okay, we could just have done that. We could have just kept doing the work and not brought anything to the select board. When we met around this, realizing that it was going to take an already stretched operation of the town and stretch us even further, we were looking together at how might we do this better. And there's some things administratively that we can do that we've already implemented to make the actual inspection process easier. But then there's the process of following up on violations. And following up on a state, when we write a violation of the state statute, that's a more cumbersome process for us to go out and follow up on to enforce than if we write a violation of a town ordinance. So what we're doing here, our recommendation to the select board is adopt the state rental housing code as the local town rental housing code so that the follow-up enforcement actions can be more efficient.
No, I understand that piece. I guess what I'm asking is piggybacking on Brandy's question about just seeing what it would cost for a person to help with that, is that we still would be able to explore that option even with adopting this. That was my clarification.
Yeah, I thought I had direction from you earlier this evening to bring that to the budget process later this year.
Absolutely. Okay. No, I just wanted to make sure.
Yeah.
Okay, so we'll do the vote again. All those in favor?
Aye.
Please say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Motion carries 5-0.
Thanks, guys. Hanging out.
Oh, thank you. Next up is an enhancement grant for the Vermont Community Development Project, Windham Windsor Housing Trust. And I understand we have someone from the Windham Windsor Housing Trust here,
Patiently here.
patiently waiting.
Thanks for waiting.
You're welcome. And basically, what you're asking is for us to apply for more money for you.
That's right. Thank you. My name is Bruce Whitney. I'm the Director of Homeownership with Windham and Windsor Housing Trust. I head up the program that supports homeowners in the 2-county area. We have a home repair program and we have a housing counseling program. And the VCDP grant funds both of those. The VCDP grant funds 99% of the home repair program and about half of the housing counseling program. So it's really critical funding, and we really thank the town of Brattleboro for your ongoing support. It's really good to be working with the folks here. Patrick and Kim do a great job with VCDP and with us. That's a really important kind of communication link. So thanks again. So the home repair program provides critical repairs to income eligible homeowners. We're doing health and safety repairs so that people can keep their homes in good order. And there's a lot of need. The home education and counseling program provides a home buyer education course that's approved by lenders, all the way down from Fannie Mae to USDA. More and more lenders are requiring this home buyer education. It's been proven to work time and time again. So we are the local provider for that. And then we provide one-on-one counseling to people who attend free of charge. The class costs $99. So with this enhancement request, we're looking to fund the next funding cycle starting October 1st of 18 and running through 9/30 of 19. In about this time next year, maybe a little earlier, I'll be coming back asking for a new grant. This is an enhancement or an extension of our current grant that we got last year and that you gave to us. So updates, with this new grant, we have extended our loan program to include 3 northern counties up in our sister agencies area down street. It's Orange, Washington, and Lamoille counties. We're providing the back office lending expertise and management. They're providing the front office customer acquisition. In this way, we're using these federal dollars more efficiently. We only have 1 grant administration and we're serving 5 counties. We also have started multifamily lending. You had a discussion just a bit ago about the need for that. Brattleboro has a loan program. We refer folks, landlords who come to us to the Brattleboro program when we hear about them, but we are looking forward to be providing loans in the surrounding communities that don't have these loan programs so that we can keep the multifamily homes up to code, healthy and safe. And the other really important thing about this VCDP grant is it provides core funding to staff this, and we leverage that in lots of different ways. But I mean, we bring money into the individual projects, but what we also are able to do is bring in other funding that do different things. And examples of that that we're doing right now is the Windham County Pellet Stove Grant. We've got money from Clean Energy Development Fund to provide incentives to help people switch from cordwood stoves to clean burning, more efficient pellet stoves. And that income goes all the way up to 120% median income. And we also just signed a contract with Efficiency Vermont to do their low income energy electric efficiency program, where people who are income eligible, if they're using over 10,000 kilowatts a year, which is a lot of electricity, and there's a lot of people using way too much electricity, we go in and we provide coaching and direct installs of everything from light bulbs to heat pumps. So if we didn't have this program that VCDP helps fund, we wouldn't have the expertise and the staff to also do these programs, which help many, many more people here in Brattleboro and around in the counties. So trends, as we see in housing in lots of different ways, there's increasing need for the moderate income folks, 80 to 100, and an increasing need for the people really poor, really low income. So we're trying to reach both of those. One of the ways we're going to be proposing to VCDP for this next cycle to help debt-strapped folks is to do a forgivable loan where they won't have to make a payment on this loan. It'll act as a grant, but if they move and sell the house within a certain term of period, they do have to pay back the grant. So we're gonna, hopefully that'll help more people. And that's, Patrick did a great job with the numbers and showing where we're at. So barring any questions on that, I will leave my presentation at that. So we're asking for an enhancement of $455,000 and $255,000. We may be tweaking that in the next couple weeks as we approach our deadline for VCDP.
Okay, and you're anticipating that money will last you another year before you'll come back and seek a new grant?
New grant. Yes,
Okay.
that's right.
Does anyone have any questions? Oh, Mr. Borland.
Madam Chair. I'm really glad and happy that Bruce was able to speak to the direct services themselves. He can explain them in ways that I can't even begin to understand. There are a couple of points that I think it's important for the board and the public to recognize. And one is this. When the state of Vermont receives its community development block grant funding from the U.S. Housing and Urban Development, a portion of that is carved out and set aside to support these scattered site services. And so what that means is that the board is in position to be able to support these requests without having the concern that doing so is going to diminish the pool of resources available for other housing or economic development projects that we might be seeking to support. So the funds that are used to support scattered site are already carved out at the state level, and so that really frees up any concerns about wanting to reserve something for some future project. And the second point I would make is in the last page of the memo. We took steps to take a look at the level of services being utilized by Brattleboro residents. And what's really kind of nice to see is that while Brattleboro's population may represent about 12% of Windham and Windsor Housing Trust's catchment area, in some cases, Brattleboro residents are receiving 17, 18, or 25% of the services. So I think what that says is that supporting these types of requests is an important way in which we can help to advance affordable housing in our community.
Thank you. Good point. Anyone else have any questions or comments?
You guys do invaluable work.
It's great.
In this community, and I like the way that you maintain your properties once you have ownership of them. I think it's quite noticeable.
Thank you.
I have a couple of suggestions on
All right.
places you should get.
Buildings to rehab. And
I do. I have
Okay,
I have a few for you.
Yeah.
Would someone like to make a motion?
I will move to authorize submission of an enhancement request in the amount of $455,255 from the Vermont Community Development Program to support the 5 county scattered site programs provided by Windham and Windsor Housing Trust and its partner, Downstreet Housing and Community Development.
We have a motion to authorize the submission of an enhancement request in the amount of $455,255. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Motion carries 5-0. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Bruce.
And good luck. We're sure he's going to get it. Now we're going to see Steve Barrett again.
Who's this guy?
First is the repairs to the Kyle Gilbert Bridge, which we first heard about like in December of last year. Wasn't it? Yeah.
Right.
So the State of Vermont Agency of Transportation conducts bridge inspections on all publicly owned bridges over 20 feet in span. Last year, in December, they sent us a report and identified that there was a missing granite block on the southern part of the bridge abutment. So we did some research, and we ended up contacting Welch Masonry and also the state. And Peter Welch comes highly recommended. He's done work for both the town of Brattleboro and the state, done some large projects. He did the Green River Bridge and Church Street Wall here in town. And we had him assess the situation. And we also contacted the State of Vermont Stream Division because it's very important when working in the stream or next to the stream that you follow the proper guidelines. So they support a proposal that Peter Welch came up. He would also be working in harmony with Renault Construction as a support. And they'll actually, my understanding is that the block that we thought originally that's in the brook was the missing block. It is not. So they're actually going to go to Rock of the Ages, and they'll actually have a custom-made granite block, which is included in this proposal, and put that back in place, and then they'll also stabilize the existing abutment. It's all granite, and then re-mortar it. So for all that, Welch Masonry has given us a proposal for $14,250 to repair the Kyle Gilbert southern abutment, and we're recommending that we accept that proposal.
Does anyone have any questions?
How big is this? It's hard to tell.
It's probably 4 by 2. 4 by 2.
Somebody took that.
He said it's going to weigh probably a couple thousand pounds.
And did it get swept out in Irene or what?
We don't really know. I think that certainly had an impact on it. You can see, upon this further inspection, that there's a gap between the mortar blocks, or between the granite blocks themselves. There's mortar, and so one of the things that he would do with this is not only stabilize the blocks around it, but then he would re-mortar between the granite blocks so they don't get loose. So we suspect over time with high water that has had a big impact. But these bridge inspections are done at least every 2 years. So it's something that came along here after Irene, but I'm sure Irene had a huge impact on it.
Yeah. If you don't mind, I have one more question.
Oh my God.
I know Peter, and he does excellent work, as we've seen in past projects. But is this something that would normally be put out to bid? Or?
We would, but in this particular application, because it's unique and it's just with stonework, we would have to go out and get an engineer and get a design and get a proposal and then put out a bid.
Okay.
And I feel that we'd probably exhaust at least half, if not more, of the funds just towards that, the engineering design, versus having it done in place with a known, recognized expert that the state will look favorably of, and also the town. So I am asking for an exception to this, because of those reasons. I
that
think
makes sense.
Economically, it will work out to our benefit.
And they're on board, obviously.
Yes.
So,
Yep, and we also already have a stream permit. We just need to notify them, after this is approved tonight, and then when we propose to do the work. Then we'll put out a press release, because there'll be a lot of people that are interested in what we're doing from the brook.
I'd like to see that happen.
Yeah.
The way they're going to put that in.
I do too. I want to watch it.
Yep.
I want to put some cones and barricades up for you, Steve.
Yeah, you're big on that.
VCTV. Russ, want to get on the film?
Live stream it.
Already got it.
No, we're gonna have to
Make
it's
t-shirts.
live and in color.
So any more questions? Somebody want to make a motion?
I can make a motion.
I move that we award a bid to Welch Masonry in the amount of $14,250 to repair the abutment on the Main Street Bridge, Brattleboro Bridge number 7, also known as the Kyle Gilbert Memorial Bridge.
We have a motion to award a bid to Welch Masonry for the repairs on the Kyle Gilbert Bridge. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Motion carries 5-0. And now you want another dump truck.
I know, that was confusing.
So now we're back into the highway division, no longer the utilities division. And this is to replace a dump truck. And you'll notice that this dump truck costs more money, and that the reason is because of the rear body. This is a full-size sander that can be used in the winter. It has actually the back body tilts up, and it has a full hydraulic sanding system. So that's the reason when you look at two trucks, why one is more expensive than the other.
No sound system for this one, I guess.
This one will not get the sound system.
AM radio.
So again, we opened up bids and very almost ditto to the utility bids with these different types of bodies. Delivery sales, again from North Hoosick's, New York, with the Viking at $155,648, and then delivery sales with the HP Fairfielder at $172,233, and then Patriot with a Freightliner with the Viking, $167,951, and then Patriot with the Freightliner with the HP Fairfielder at $184,536, and then Patriot with a Western Star with the Viking equipment, $174,233, and then Patriot with the Western Star with the HP Fairfielder at $190,818. And so we're recommending that we accept the low bid again at $155,648. And also this has very similar options with the auto lube system, the bolt-on stainless steel apron that we're familiar with now, and the extended warranty, for a total of $171,583. And in the highway capital budget, $195,000 was approved for this purchase. And I'll entertain any questions.
Anyone have questions?
No.
Oh, Tim does, I can see.
Are you going to Hoosick to pick it up at all?
They deliver.
Oh, okay.
Were you
There's a
able to
great
get-
English
So I
pub.
go for it.
Oh my God.
Which we will not visit when we're about to drive. But thank you.
Tim just wants to ride in the back after being in the pub.
I thought that's where it was going.
Oh my God.
Man.
So we learned that it includes delivery.
It's delivery, that's what we learned from that.
We learned a lot from you tonight, Steve.
It's the little things that count.
So, anyone want to make a motion?
I'd like to make a motion to award a bid for a highway department dump truck to Delury Sales and Service in the total amount of $171,583.
We have a motion to award a bid for a highway department dump truck to Delury Sales and Service. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Motion carries 5-0.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Thank you for the
Steve.
recommendation.
Thank you, Steve.
Thanks for staying.
Thank you.
Man of Kent.
Next up is the first reading on two ordinance amendments. One deals with taxi cabs or vehicles for hire, and the second is the loading and unloading zone in front of the Boys and Girls Club. And I know the town manager would like to
Thank you.
make a few remarks.
I won't say much about the vehicles for hire because you had a very extensive discussion of that last time. This is now on for your first reading as a result of that preliminary consideration that you gave to it. I will summarize for the benefit of the public that the purpose here, the purpose of this ordinance is to extend regulations that have long been part of the town code for taxi cabs, for protecting public safety, and ensuring that the vehicles and the drivers are both meeting certain standards for the taxi cab companies that operate in town. Taking that same set of regulations and applying it more broadly to other types of vehicles for hire. So this came up primarily as a concern related to Uber and Lyft online operations that are a bit more independent and have been operating in many communities, including ours, under the radar, so to speak, of the taxi cab regulations because they're not technically a taxi cab. But it'll apply not only to Uber and Lyft and those types of services, but also to other transportation services. So limousines that may be operated in town, or vans that may be operated, or they operate here in Brattleboro to pick up and take folks to the airport, that sort of thing. So it's going to cast a broader net and create a more level playing field and increase the safety of the traveling public. And unless you have any concern that you raise about this, there's no action you need to take tonight. But unless you raise a concern and tell us that you want something different, we'll bring this back to you 2 weeks from tonight for your second reading and adoption.
And if I can just say something for the public.
Please.
Primarily what's happened to the ordinance is the word taxi cab has been replaced with vehicle for hire.
Correct.
So that's the most substantive change that you see throughout the whole thing. There are a couple other changes that the town attorney put in to make it consistent with what the new state law is. So, and again, I was the one that brought this up. I won't say Lifetime original movies because that gets Brandy gets scared, but because I was just worried about safety and just having a better idea of who's driving who around.
Yeah. Well, no, I have a
Professional
question. I do have a question as I was looking at this, and I was looking at something that I think was coming through the state legislature as well, rental properties and alternative ways that people try to make more income in this area because it's not always easy to find employment. And so, yes, totally to public safety, of course. So I'm also looking at the question of, will this make it more difficult for people who are trying to have a side hustle? Like, there's that question I have. And for example, the other piece is friends driving friends who, like, intermittently, is there a cap on, like, if, let's say, a friend pays a friend to drive them to the airport for like $100, or like, does this fall into that category, or?
So a friend who's just on an informal basis is going to say, hey, could you take me to the airport and, I'll buy your gas or I'll give you $100?
Yeah.
that's a friend relationship.
Right.
There won't be any regulation involved in that. If the friend is an Uber driver and the ride is going to be arranged through the service, then as an Uber driver providing services to friends and to strangers, that person would need to get registered.
I did, you missed the last meeting, but this is the first reading, right? But we talked about
Yes.
it last meeting.
Yes.
I did raise that general idea that it probably will discourage some Uber drivers from continuing, because there is quite a few people that are kind of dabbling and not really, might not want to pay. Is it 100 for the year?
Yeah.
For the vehicle.
For the vehicle.
The
But
25.
they have to have insurance, and they have to, and the vehicle's got to be clean.
It's not anything that they would be able to split up into payments as they're earning, or,
No.
no?
Once a year.
I think
I see.
Yeah.
the thing that made me, like, I heard Tim and I agreed with it, but I also was like, well, the taxi people have to do it.
Yeah.
Is
it's
it
sort of-
fairer, level playing field a little bit, even
Yeah.
though I know that that's a whole investment, being a taxi driver, and there's more backing and a little more institution behind it. So I see that it's, in trying to make it fair, it's still slightly unfair, but it feels weird to not make them do the same thing.
Well, see, that's what I'm questioning, because as I'm thinking about what I call it's known as the gig economy, or the hustle economy, where people are just trying to,
Yeah.
they're safe people, they're not murderers or whoever they are, masking and driving around Uber or Lyft, but like how difficult this would make it as an entry fee to be an individual who just wants to try to make more extra income, especially in an area where they may not be able to find an extra job. So that's just my question in terms of like how challenging or difficult do we make this for people, even, and of course recognizing we need to ensure public safety. So I'm not saying it's an exchange for public safety, but how are we also making it, yes, being fair and leveling playing field, but also being very fair and understanding people who may need second or third jobs. So I don't know the answer to that.
I don't either.
Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, I see it, and I wish I had written down how Bob Fisher said it perfectly, and now I cannot remember what he said.
I can't either.
But it's a business, you know, and how do you judge if someone's business is better or worse or more important to their
Right.
income as another, you know,
Right.
because you know that the people that run the taxi cab service, they have expenses, and we don't know if they're just making ends meet. Do you know what I mean? So
Yeah.
it's sort of like, how do you judge? That's not what he said. He said something else, but I'm saying this. You know, so to me, it is a fairness issue that we're just assuming, oh, the taxi cab people, they can afford to do this, so let's give them make them pay a fee, but let's not make Tim, the Uber driver, pay a fee because he can't. Meanwhile, Tim, the Uber driver, could be clearing way more than the taxi cab guy can. Do you see what I mean? Because we don't have.
So we want to we're basically, I mean, I totally understand that we're trying to level the business playing field, but then
Yeah.
there is a difference between bigger operations and small business and
But Uber's
micro business.
Uber's a big operation.
Yeah.
No, I
They take a
understand
good
that, but I
chunk
mean,
of
as an
that.
individual, like an individual who might be under Uber, but they're,
But then if you think about the taxi cab service that's set up as a legitimate taxi cab service.
Right.
They have, you know, $100 a car, or $50 a driver, or they have to get a business license, they
Yeah.
have insurance. So their overhead could be way higher than
Right.
Tim's, the Uber
Right.
drivers. You know what I mean? But
Yeah.
we're making an assumption that the Uber driver is not making as much as the taxi cab service,
Right.
where it could be totally the other way around.
Yeah, and honestly, even though I brought that up, I wouldn't, I'm not opposing this at all, because it comes out to slightly over $10 a month if you add the 100 plus
Yeah.
the 25.
no, I was just raising a question. I'm not making an argument for or against either way, just making, I'm trying to, like, if someone's underneath that level and just an individual trying to, and they're a decent individual, I was just raising that question, that's all. I'm not,
No.
like, making an argument for or against either way.
Yeah. I just wish I would remember what Bob said. I'll have to go back and watch it, because at the time I thought it was really profound, and now I can't remember what it was.
But I understand how it's leveling the playing field, like from a business perspective. I get that.
Yeah.
And trying to make things fair. And I know that in terms of the rising gig economy across the nation, I know that this is something that's been discussed for everything from Airbnbs to transportation, and how do you put them on the same level playing field with like hotels or other types of businesses that are offering the same services, and what's fair and what's not fair. So I've known that's been a national conversation.
Yeah.
And we are still looking at the Airbnb thing. We actually
Right.
thought we might be bringing both forward together, but this was ready, and we're still doing some research around the
course.
Airbnb piece. So in the months ahead, we're likely to bring that to you as well.
No, absolutely.
So we need no action tonight. And did anyone have any more comments or questions about that one? Okay, now the second one is about the parking in front of the Boys and Girls Club.
Right, so there's a loading zone that serves Sam's primarily, but the other businesses in that area that starts some distance from the Flat Street, Main Street intersection. So there's a stretch of no parking along that northerly curb of Flat Street. Then there's a loading zone, and then there's some more no parking. The additional stretch of no parking currently begins at the eastern border of boundary of the Boys and Girls Club property. What they're asking is to have the loading zone extend past their property so that parents dropping off kids and people delivering things to the club can make a quick stop in there using the same rules that apply to all our loading zones and not be violating the no parking. Staff has taken a look at it. We believe it can operate safely. We believe it's a smart, correct thing to do given the function of the club. And the no parking will pick up to the west of the club and continue on down that stretch further on down Flat Street as it does today. So what's before you is this, by the way, has also been to, in accordance with our regular procedures for these things, has been to the Traffic Safety Committee, where the Traffic Safety Committee looked at the same set of questions, actually heard from Ricky Davidson, the executive director of the club, and did give its blessing to bringing this to the select board as an ordinance amendment to create the loading zone. So if you have questions or comments, we'd be happy to work through that with you. Otherwise, we'll be bringing this one to you also for adoption 2 weeks from tonight.
Okay.
Sounds like a good idea.
Any questions? Comments? All right. Thank you.
Thank you.
Very much. Now we have John O'Connor with the July Finance Report.
Take it away, Jim.
Thank you, Kate. Good evening, everyone. So we're 8.3% of the way through the fiscal year, and general fund expenditures stood at 11.8% of the annual budget. But if we prorate the semi-annual insurance payments, the annual human service payments, and the annual lease and note payments, which were included in those July figures, and we prorate those numbers, the expenditures would drop to 7.7% of the total year's budget. Utilities fund expenditures were at 10.1%. Parking was at 7.5% of their annual budgets. And the utilities fund had a $105,000 encumbrance for sludge removal that, if we prorate that, would reduce the expenses to 8.5%. So pretty close to where we would expect to be. Solid waste had revenues of 5% and expenditures of 3%, but again, the July refuse bag revenue and curbside collection costs and tipping fees weren't recorded until October, so it's a little misleading to look at those figures. And the loan report showed that we had $4,432,065 in outstanding loans issued through the town's various loan programs. 2 loans had payments that were overdue, and 2 loans are in default and fully reserved. Program income, we had $468,573 available for additional grants and loans as of the end of July. And then finally, the grant report has various information on 35 active grants and 7 grants that are in the application process. So again, a very active grant program that we're involved in acquiring grants. So if you have any questions, I'll try to answer those. Otherwise, that is the report for July.
Does anyone have any questions? We can't really glean much yet.
No
We have
real
no
trends
idea.
coming up yet.
We're ahead, though. We're 0.6% ahead, of a percent ahead. I wish we had a bunch of questions for you after making you sit here all this time. My only question is, can we put in 3 months, can we put the financial report first on new business agenda to pay John back for staying?
We normally do.
Yeah.
John and I
recall
conferred
that.
about this one, actually, and while it was making an especially an unusually late night for John, it allowed the financial reports, the short-term and the long-term, to be paired here at the end of the meeting. So.
Good.
Well, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, John. Wish we had more questions, but it's too early
Yeah,
to
have
know
some
what
too
questions
early
we
on
have.
your way home.
Are you sure? Brandon's gone crazy. Thank you, John.
Moment over here.
You are welcome, Kate.
Now we go to the long-term financial plan.
Long-term.
So I'd like to know what the board's pleasure is on how much of a report you want from me. The written report is on the town's website, and you've all had it in your backup. It's been out also separately, not just posted on the homepage of the website, but posted with the backup for this meeting. I'm happy to go through in some significant detail. If you'd prefer a shorter, and for the benefit of the public, I want to note that the board hasn't just been here for the last couple of hours, but actually for over 4 hours now, because we had a longer than usual executive session today. So if you'd like me to just hit the highlights, there are 3 that I would like to hit.
Hit them.
I have one question.
So, fair enough. Yep. So, so the report is an update. Annually, we drop off the current fiscal year and add another fiscal year as an out year. So we're always looking 5 years into the future. And we, among other things, we try to hit highlights that are calling out to the board's attention and to the public's attention, things that may have some significant impact, positively or negatively, on town finances as we go forward into the future. So we call out some highlights each time about assumptions we've made and about trends we see. We also, just generally, because there's a line-by-line format of this that's attached to the summary report that's in the same format, the line-by-line report is in the same format as the town's budget. So a person who's familiar with the budgeting process that we go through in October through March can also look at this report and see what our forecast looks like in terms of which things are increasing more slowly or more quickly over time. But each year it's important for us to highlight particular things that stand out that year, and especially as it compares to prior reports. So the first thing I'd like to point out is that we expect to reach an important milestone this year. For the last 4 or 5 years, we've been working really hard to increase our cash commitment to capital investment for both capital improvements and capital equipment. Back in FY16, the budget included $357,000 worth of current revenues, basically money from taxes to pay for capital. We were up to over $500,000 the next year, to $744,000 the year after that, and to $965,000 in the current year's budget. So we are close enough now to our goal that we set several years ago to get to $1 million a year of real-time revenues being put into capital to take some pressure off of always having to find large chunks of money to catch up. So in a year where we had a substantial surplus the year before, we can put more into capital. But in a year when we had a smaller surplus the year before, we're strapped unless we're routinely paying as we go and living on our means, living within our means. So this year we expect that when we come to you in a few months with the FY20 budget, that we're actually going to be able to show $1 million worth of current revenues as a commitment to capital. We still do expect, though, that we'll be using fund balance each year as a recommended way to boost that $1 million. $1 million is the bare minimum. It's the goal we set for ourselves to try to make sure we were doing that sort of out of our cash, out of our wallets, not putting it on the credit card, and not having to go find the money in the other room. Probably stretching my metaphor too far, but my concern would be that we not view $1 million as like, now we did it and we're all set, because $1 million a year just isn't sufficient to keep up with our needs. We know that those needs, are well in excess of $1 million, really on a continuing short to midterm basis in excess of $2 million. Over the long haul, when we get back on top of these needs, we will be able to maintain at a more affordable amount. But we're still doing a lot of catching up from years of unmet needs. And so the way that we expect to be able to have some flexibility to do that is we have not used any fund balance in the forecast this year. And that's a significant difference from the first 2 years of doing this long-term financial plan, where we were projecting actual amounts of use of fund balance with as much caution as we could, but still where we were suggesting to you that it was likely that in the next year or the year after that, there would be a certain amount of fund balance that would be augmenting our current revenues. This time, we've been able to actually show some reasonably affordable expenditure forecast set against a revenue side that only has current revenues in it.
Good.
Combination of taxes and non-tax current revenues. So with a zero in the forecast for every year for use of fund balance, but where we know that routinely we're going to have a couple $100,000, and some years we might have $600,000 or $800,000. That's a way in which we'll be able to use that fund balance to stretch the commitment to capital above and beyond what we're able to afford with cash. And finally, in terms of the bottom line impact of the forecast, I wanted to underscore that we're making real progress by doing this as a recurring effort, and then the work that we do that's more specific to each individual fiscal year with the budgets. We're able to find ways, we have been able to find ways where we're saving money on the expenditure side. We haven't been as successful at increasing revenue, although we have had a few areas where we've been able to do that in non-tax revenue. But mainly it's by reducing the growth of expenditures that our forecast this year is, if you add the pennies of increase, we forecast what we think the tax rate will need to increase in each of the 5 years of the forecast. If you add the 5-year total of that pennies of increase in this 5-year forecast that's before you tonight, we're at 15.9 cents of increase over the 5-year period. Last year, the report showed 16.4 cents of increase, and the year before that, 18.3 cents of increase. So we're finding ways to project meeting our needs with less tax increase. It's marginally less, but still with less tax increase than in the prior years. This is particularly true when you look at this year versus last year, because last year's forecast did include use of fund balance, and this year's doesn't. So if you were to offset that, if you adjusted last year's increases and took the fund balance out and make the amount of projected tax increase higher to account for that, then the difference in the 4 years that are comparable, they don't line up exactly right because they're dropping off a year and adding a year. But in the 4 years that overlap between the 2017 long-term plan and the 2018 long-term plan, what's before you tonight shows 13.2 cents of increase as against 16.5 cents of increase last year. So I think the overall message here is that our attempt to stabilize town finances and use long-term planning as a way to make some sound decisions both on the expenditure side and the revenue side, but most especially on the expenditure side, is paying some dividends. We still have hard work to do every time in each annual budget process, but the results from long-term plan to long-term plan have been positive.
Great, thank you. Does anyone have any questions?
I just had one about the third page. You talk about the annual debt service payments.
Yes.
Declining.
Yes.
Is that just as notes is something going to be paid off in the process, or is that just the declining cost of each year?
You'll see this each year. Last year, the decrease was actually larger than this. It was a little over $500,000 this year over the 5-year period, and this year we're looking at $380,000. And it's a combination of two things. It has in each case included a year when there's a more substantial drop because we're actually finished paying for something. And then each year incrementally, as long as we're not taking on new debt, each year will incrementally show a little bit less of a debt service obligation because of the interest payments going down. So we have level principal payments and our interest goes down over time.
And I thought I knew this, but I didn't. When does the Honeywell bond?
It's another couple of years, like 2021, I think.
And that's not included in this 5-year projection because that's a single, or is it? Is that already?
That's in the lease payment, I believe.
Yes.
That drops off during this 5-year forecast.
So that's not a debt service.
Well, that's one. Yeah, no. It would be one of the triggers here for the 380. Is that right, John?
Yep. It goes through 2022.
Through 2022.
And how much is that each year?
126,925.
I thought it was more. Well,
Yeah.
great.
Can you just let the viewing public know what you're talking about?
Yeah. Well, it's an old, it's been for a long time, but yeah, several years ago, the town and the school district contracted with Honeywell Corporation to re-outfit all the climate controls and just millions of dollars worth of upgrades and pay it off over a long period of time. And when the Energy Committee comes and does their report, they'll report on the savings. But I can't remember the amount of money we're saving, but it's significantly more than we're paying each year. It's more the 124 that we're paying. The money that's not being spent, even on in current dollars, is what we're paying is way less than what we're saving from having made that investment on energy costs. I just want it to be done.
Yeah, I had a quick question. Down on the first page, you sort of have a projection for the next 5 years.
Yep.
Of fiscal year 20 through 24. Why is there sort of a ping pong effect?
So the
2.8 to
it all depends on which piece of playground equipment we prefer. I was thinking of it as a seesaw, but the driver there is the decline in debt service. So the years where debt service declines more substantially are the years where we see a smaller increase in the total cost of government.
Okay, so it's pretty much driven by debt service.
Right. So there's, for the public's benefit, I'll say there's a 3.6 cent year in year 1, a 3.6 cent year in year 3, and a 3.4 cent year in year 5. And the two even numbered years are 2.6 and 2.7, almost a full penny less of increase. The reason why is because those are the years where we see a substantial drop in the debt service.
I think I'll warn my fellow board members now that I'm going to take a little bit more of an aggressive, conservative fiscal approach to it.
I won't be the only one then, because this is a lot. And I'm glad that it's lower than it was when we did it last year, but it's 11.6% increase over 5 years.
Especially given the generosity of town meeting that we experienced this year. I think we really have to be careful.
Yep.
Going forward.
Well, I'm excited.
Especially if we're going to hire somebody to do the building inspector's expenses.
Yeah.
Crank that.
Coming attraction.
Yeah, stay tuned.
Pretty soon, too. Coming soon.
That's true.
To find a heater.
I know, it's like freezing in here. We want our space heater. So does anyone else have any questions? This is very helpful.
Yeah, thank you
very much.
Thank you.
And it's
for
good
all
to
of
get
your
it
work.
now, so we have time to digest it and think about it prior to.
Thank you for noting that.
It's-
We really struggled the first couple of years. Our intent, of course, is to have these things evenly spaced throughout the year, where we do planning in the spring, long-term forecast in the
No, I
summer.
didn't mean it as a dig.
No, I didn't take it as a dig.
I meant it as, I'm really personally thankful to
Yeah,
get it
I
now.
know.
Not that you didn't get it.
No, I didn't think it as a dig. So let me try to explain myself before all of Brattleboro.
Thanks,
that-
Cam.
No, I was embarrassed that the first 2 years we struggled, and it came to you just before we brought you the budget, and it really doesn't serve its purpose well
No.
when it's the two things right on top of each other.
Right.
By being able to do this in the summer as we plan to, it does give us all the opportunity to reflect on it before we actually are doing budgeting together in a couple of months.
Yeah.
Thank you.
That's what I
No big
meant
taken.
it in a nice, not a,
took it
you
in a
didn't get
nice
it
way.
done.
Yeah, I understood. Thank you.
Yep.
Nice one.
So that's it. Does anyone want to make a motion to adjourn? So moved. We have a motion to adjourn. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Motion carries 5-0. Thank you, everybody.
I was like, oh shoot, I should have said it. But you can tell him I did.
I know, I really did think so.
Thank you.